Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We are going to have a lovely show for you today. Welcome aboard, Miguel Rodnin. Michael Rodnin is in the house. How are you doing, Michael? He says, I'm sleep deprived today. Catch you tomorrow. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, brother Rodnin. Sorry that you can't stick around. I have a good interview with Ryan Grimm. I guess you guys know Ryan Grimm from all the shows he does on MSNBC and other places. I tell you what, I'm talking about sleep deprived. That piece that I did with Tyler Perry, I was looking at my face and it's like, God, Egberto, you look like you just woke up. But guess what? When I did it, I really just woke up. But anyway, welcome aboard, Michael Rodnin. Welcome aboard, Brige MCP. Welcome aboard, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Welcome aboard, E2247. How you doing, my dear brother? Of course, welcome aboard, Sharkulas, hairstylist. Great to have you here again. And we have Lee Grant is in the house. So is El Señor Eric Hayes. So we have our complement of folks here. Thank you so kindly all for being here. And Bruce Pollard says, Yo estoy aquí también. In other words, Bruce is in the house. Hey, Bruce, we are supposed to have coffee this week. I have some work to do today and tomorrow. Let's see about, catching an hour or so on Saturday. You give me a shout if you're up to it, if you're feeling good enough that we just go out to that Starbucks out where you are at in your part of town. Okay, who else do we've got here? All right, I think that's all I've got here. I tell you what I'm going to start with. I interviewed Ryan Grimm last night. Let me see. Well, I tell you what, let me play the Tyler Perry one first. That one, I cleaned up the one that I did at KPFT because it really got to me, the Tyler Perry story. And so let me play that one, and then I'll go ahead and do the interview. Thanks for listening to that interview that I did on the New York radio station yesterday. I'll play that one tomorrow for the rest of the audience to see. Vrij didn't want to do it today because I know some of you had already listened to that piece that I did. But this time, you listen to it. I have video of that with me and Arthur Schwartz. That's who we did it with, Arthur Schwartz. Hey, Paul Fleming is also in the house. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to the Tyler Perry piece. It's about the Amazon puff piece that they did on Tyler Perry. Then after we return from that one, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit and then do the one with Ryan Grimm where we discuss AOC, the AIPAC, how he destroyed. A few days ago, he had Ted Cruz on his show, and he completely destroyed Ted Cruz. So we'll do that in the second half hour. So let's go ahead and do this one now, and then we'll take it on the other side. I cover a whole lot of stories, and sometimes I cover things on celebrities, etc. And celebrities, as a part of their portfolios, they do things that sometimes makes one wonder. I've had sort of a angst towards Tyler Perry, because in my humble opinion, a lot of the way he built his fortune, in my opinion, was ridiculing African Americans. And notice I didn't say ridiculing black folks. I said ridiculing African Americans, because what he many times I thought was doing was sort of ridiculing the culture. That's my opinion. So for the longest time, I remember going early on when he just started, and I think it was either DVDs or even before DVDs used to release, I think it was tapes. I remember going to the home of a friend here in Kingwood, and they had one of his tapes or DVDs. They played it, and because he used to tape them live, and I looked around and I'm like, why would somebody try to do that? I just sort of got upset at watching the tape, but it kind of caught on, just like certain things catch on, and he started to grow and grow and grow. And I remember watching a couple of his movies and noticing sort of what happened to black professional men in his movies. It always seemed that he made them abusive, take advantage of women, etc., etc. And that kind of stuff really irked me. Look, all the black men, all the men that I hang around in general, do the right thing. So I don't know what stereotype he was doing out there, but I know he was in fact setting a stereotype. That's personal. That may be my sensibilities. What really got to me back in 2019 was when a good friend of mine, an activist reporter out of Atlanta, she called me up and she said, Egberto, Tyler Perry got this big deal in Atlanta, and it's in a black neighborhood, and purportedly he got all these tax breaks. And the idea behind this tax break is to revitalize the area that he was in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what she did is we did a live show. I did a show on what I found out about him doing, about the breaks that he got. And then she went and did a live show with her iPhone, and we brought her in live to Politics Done Right as she went around the neighborhood, went around the gated studio, that was pretty much smack in the middle of this neighborhood, and protected against the people on the outside. And it just irked me that you had this company run by Tyler Perry's company, smack in a black neighborhood, giving $30 million in tax breaks, doesn't pay any taxes on the property that he got. It's the property now, a former base. And the neighborhood that it's in is pretty much a squatter. So I did that piece, and I linked that piece in my newsletter. Oh, actually, I did two pieces on it. One where she's outside of the studio, going around the neighborhood with the blight, with people on the streets, sleeping on the streets, etc., in that area. And then the other live we did from Atlanta, she did it from within the studio. She kind of finagled herself inside the studio, inside of the grounds of the studio, and she's out there, doing some shoots for me live on the show. Now, Jacobin, it's 2023. That was 2019. 2023, Jacobins writes an article because Perry has this puff piece out on, I think it's Amazon, where he goes and they talk about his story from poverty into success and lifting himself up from the bootstraps and all that kind of stuff. My wife saw the program and she came and she was all, wow, that story about Tyler Perry and all of that was great. And here comes the Grinch, Egberto. It's like, well, I'm not particularly a fan of Perry because, again, of how I thought he came, how this stuff was built, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I see this article titled, Tyler Perry's Wealth is Not Trickling Down to Black Residents of Atlanta. And that automatically tickled me. Said, let me read it. So I want to read sections of this for you. Filmmaker and entrepreneur Tyler Perry is a billionaire. His Atlanta studio received massive tax write-off premise on the idea that his success will inspire others. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's a liberal version of trickle-down economics. And it says, the new Amazon Prime film, Maxime's Baby, documents the rise of Tyler Perry, who was born into poverty and hardship in New Orleans and overcame racism and long odds to become one of the highest paid entertainers in the world, a billionaire no less. While the film tries to affect the tone of a serious examination, it's ultimately a glossy 2-hour commercial for the filmmaker and entrepreneur, a chance for Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg to hype him as among the pantheons of today's greatest cinematic innovators. Is Tyler Perry running for office? Ask RogerEbert.com. Maybe not, but it's a fair question. The ethos that structures the film's feel-good arc has been the beating heart of the Democratic Party's vision of social justice since the Obama years. By now, most liberals wince at the mention of Reagan-branded trickle-down economics. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama all use the term in a derogatory manner. The irony is that these liberals, in addition to a weak commitment to hiking taxes on the rich, have their own version of the theory. Their thinking goes that when members of marginalized groups make it to the top of the economic and cultural ladder, their assent is an automatic gain for remaining members of that group. But Tyler Perry's fame and wealth have not trickled down to working class and poor black people in his home city of Atlanta. Perry celebrated the 2019 opening of his production studio on a defunct Fort McPherson Army base with sound stages named for wealthy black celebrities, including Winfrey, Goldberg, as life-changing act of social justice of surrounding community. When I built my studio, I built it in a neighborhood that's one of the poorest black neighborhoods in Atlanta so that young black kids can see a black man did that and they can do that too. I was trying to help them cross, Perry proclaimed during the BET Awards speech. You know, that kind of talking never turns me on. I want to be an example to other black people so they can see what I do. You don't need to be an example overtly. You are an example by your works, by what you do. And people see you and inherently they look at you and they say, I can achieve. That is what Obama was when Obama became president. Black people saw that it was una meta. It was a goal that it's okay to strive for because there is somebody who actually did it. But I digressed. Back to the article. In fact, it's been the other way around. Almost all of Atlanta's residents have subsidized Tyler Perry's personal wealth, which reportedly topped $1 billion this year in some way or another. In 2015, Perry acquired the Fort McPherson land for the significantly discounted market price of $30 million, though it had been appraised for as much as $75 million. Let me break right there from the article and explain something. If Tyler Perry bought a market valued property that's worth $75 million and he got it for $30 million, that is you people of Atlanta, you immediately increase Tyler Perry's worth, his wealth, by $45 million. Because had listen to this, had Atlanta, instead of giving that property to Tyler Perry for $30 million, had they sold it to some other company for $75 million, that would have been an extra $45 million in the coffers of Atlanta. If they had sold it at the market value, an extra $45 million would have been there. But it gets worse. Some local Democrats called it a sweetheart deal between Perry and his friend Kasim Reed, then the mayor of Atlanta. Critics said it seemed designed to help the mogul's pocketbook rather than the poor black neighborhood around it. It felt like a trick, a dirty, dirty trick, said one local resident after the deal was announced. Forbes now estimates that Tyler's studio is worth $280 million, but because of a tax deal made with local officials, he's had to pay zero property taxes on it from 2015 to 2022. You see, all those poor people that live around that base that is surrounded by a fence that is now Tyler Studios, they all are paying property taxes. Likely their property taxes would have been increased because the value of their property have increased given that Tyler Perry built his studio there. People, that's money. And by the way, I'm on to Tyler Perry on this, but this occurs with all billionaires and rich people, irrespective of who they are. I just happen to be talking about Tyler Perry, who I think should understand better. I mean, buy the thing at $75 million so the people can profit from that. But no, that was his profit. That's money would otherwise largely go to Atlanta public schools, whose student body is disproportionately poor and black. In 2023, the Fulton County assessor calculated the studio's value at $74 million. So even the appraised value of the studio, 74 million, is nowhere close to the market value of $280 million. You want to know why rich people continues to get rich faster than poor people are able to build your worth? These deals are what I'm talking about. About a quarter of Forbes' estimate, which means taxes are less than $1 million that he has to pay whenever he starts to pay taxes. Additionally, Perry has taken advantage of the 30% state tax credit given the film production in Georgia. The share of tax money used to subsidize Hollywood productions cost Georgia voters an average of $330 per household last year. Perry earned plenty of glowing national headlines earlier this year for his philanthropy in donating $750,000 to help low-income seniors in Atlanta as property taxes increase. So everybody say, oh, what a nice guy. He gave $750,000 to help poor people pay their taxes. But he took $45 million in excess from what he paid and didn't pay for that land for the studio. And he paid zero taxes between 2015 and 2022. Still, there was no mention of the layers upon layers of tax breaks he got in the first place. Meanwhile, Atlanta now has the worst income inequality in the nation, with the median household income for a black family at $28,000 compared to $83,000 in the same city for white families. Some of the neighborhoods and southern and west suburbs surrounding Tyler's Perry Studios remain among the most poverty-stricken. Hey, I did the report in 2019. Nothing has changed. He got the property now. He has a property now, I think, almost 10 years. How has the neighborhood changed? The only thing I think can be accounted for is a lot of the board. By the way, the Atlanta activist reporter that I work with, she's also a real estate agent. But she's one of the good ones out there that tries to make deals and put people into homes. She showed what's happening to the home values, that people are having to move out because Tyler Perry has moved in, and the property value around his studio has increased. Don't think it's not going to be gentrified, because we spoke about that as well. Okay, so continue. Some of the neighborhoods in southwestern suburbs surrounding Tyler Perry's studio remain among the poorest, poverty-stricken. Not that you'll hear anything about that in the documentary they just made about him. But perhaps, goes the thinking, these struggling residents will one day see the Amazon Prime film or peer through the gates and stare up at the 35,000 square foot, $100 million mega mansion Perry is building nearby and be inspired to lift themselves out of poverty. If that sounds familiar, it's because Maxine Baby is a liberal twist on a familiar trope. One man's journey to the heights of fame and fortune will trickle down and become everyone else's success. Folks, capitalism doesn't know color. Capitalism doesn't have a heart. Capitalism doesn't care as long as it builds on capital. It builds one's capital. That's what it's all about. And when you see Jay-Z, who is worth billions on the backs of many, and his cousin asks him for $5,000 for a venture, and he goes out and he makes a big issue with it on national radio and says something to the effect, he thinks it's just easy for $5,000, and this is for $5,000. He has ripped millions of dollars off of rap artists that he works with, allegedly. Okay, but it is just amazing what capitalism does to one's heart, what capitalism does to one's soul. Anyway, folks, so that is my take. That's Jacobin tape. It seems like Breach found a 2009 article that's apropos. Let me read it. It says, Sorry about that. Tyler Perry's gender problem filmmaker Tyler Perry may see himself as creating modern day fairy tales for black women, but he's actually reinforcing some seriously conservative gender politics. Tyler Perry has rapidly become the most bankable African American movie making branding in Hollywood and an entrepreneurial heavyweight. The seven feature films he has conceived, has produced, and earned more than $300 million at the box office with an average opening week gross of $25 million. No small feat for films with predominantly black cast. Sorry about that. He credits his creative inspiration for his films in part to African American women. So far, so good. That is until you see the films. Though Perry repeatedly referenced his admiration for an allegiance to African American women as a foundation of his work, his portrayal of women of color undermines the complexity of their experience through his reductionist approach to his character and his dependence on disquieting gender politics. Perry may see himself as creating modern day fairy tale for black women, but what he may not realize is that fairy tale in general have never been kind to women, and we're talking women in general. The crux of Perry's gender problem lies in his reliance on conservative gender politics that eschew a more progressive, inclusive agenda. Each of his films advances nearly the same message to his audience, which is overwhelmingly African American female, devoutly Christian, and over 30. Be demure, be strong but not too strong. Too much ambition is a detriment to your ability to find a partner and spiritual health. Female beauty can be dangerous. Let a man be a man. And I had not read this one from The Nation, but that is actually complimentary of what I said, how he deals with professional black men in his movies. Go ahead and watch his movies. I sat down with my wife one time and I told her, my God, I just don't like that sort of portrayal. Okay. Eric Hayes says 100 million could have helped lots of people, but nope, kind of like the Tyler Perry argument here. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Okay, Shakula Hairstylist says, it's okay, Egberto. I am white and hate Taylor Swift. She's the worst thing to come to music since MTV. But you know what? It's so funny that you said you hate Taylor Swift. I admire Taylor Swift. And let me tell you why I admire Taylor Swift. By the way, I still think we need to do something about taxes to tax a lot of the money that she actually extracts out of the masses. But that's for another show. Another show, because a lot of people will say, well, she goes out on stage and earn it. I have the same argument for her, Shakula, that you hear me make about Oprah Winfrey and the engineers who created all the pieces that allowed them their success, who make no profit on the success that they've been allowed to put up. But as far as Tyler Perry, I have the same admiration for Tyler Perry as I have for Taylor Swift. They use our current economic structure and they took command and did it however they could. In other words, they did what it took in this economic system to succeed. Now, the difference that I find between Taylor Swift and Tyler Perry is, my contention is, many a times Tyler Perry used the black community, buffoonerized the black community too often, and he made his money because, again, if you look, when you demean a group of folks that society at large sort of is accustomed of seeing demeaned, you can profit from that. And in my humble opinion, and some of you may take exception to that, but in my humble opinion, that's what he did. Now, I don't see Tyler Perry saying, oh, white girls are this or that, or trying to do anything to that actually fulfill some sort of a negative stereotype. My opinion, anybody wants to comment about that, I would love to hear what you have to say about that. Now, as far as our music is concerned, placé. All right. Let's see. Vidish MCP said we did this already. I'm not sure what we're talking about. Vidish, no, I mean, he doesn't put women up, especially black. Okay. Shakula here said, true. I bet a lot of Republican dads or having some bad times. Okay, Paul Fleming says, please post your number. I would like to speak to you directly. You can speak to me directly anytime. I tell you what, I can't post my number up here, but I can go ahead and I thought you had my number though. I tell you what to do. Send me a direct message, and I'll send it to you, Paul. We'll talk. We'll definitely talk. Let's see what else I have here. Daniel Ledo, the virtue signal is worth 45 million. Local politicians will milk that for virtue for at least 2 elections. LOL, they got played. Actually, Ledo, I normally don't agree with you. But you notice I read that one? You notice I read that one, right, Ledo? And guess why, Ledo? You were right. Mi amigo está correcto for one. I guess a clock is right twice. A dead clock is right twice a day. I love you, Ledo. I love you, Ledo. Just had to make fun of that one. All right, Yvette Avery Herod is in the house. How you doing, beautiful? Great to have you here. Let's see what else we got here. A Taylor Swift tax, great idea. Oh, wow. I know you're being facetious, but I'll take it anyway. Bree says, Egberto Willis, I was saying we did this story already regarding Tyler. I did the Tyler story long time ago in 2019. This was a new one based on Jacobin. My dear brother, Ray, talk to me, Ray.
Hey, Egberto, yeah. I heard you going in a little bit on Tyler Perry, and while I don't disagree with you, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit.
No, please do. And by the way, Ray, I like that is my opinion. I mean, if you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear that as well. Absolutely.
No. So I want to offer some nuance to this debate. So, I agree with you. I'm not a fan of Tyler Perry's subject matter. I feel like, the movies and stuff, it's kind of cliched Black experiences, like you said, stereotypes. Now, on the flip side, when I say I'm playing devil's advocate, I feel like a lot of admiration for Tyler Perry goes to his economic capabilities, meaning there used to be a skit that Dave Chappelle made with Wayne Brady, and there was a catchphrase he would say. He would say, "Black actors," meaning working Black actors. Mm-hmm. And what I think is Tyler Perry's appeal is through his art craft and his writings, he's been able to employ, multiple Black actors and keep them, employed for a long period of time. So you couldn't tell those Black actors or people who aspired to act, that may have benefited from the studios that are being built in his area. That's why it's kind of hard to villainize him in a sense, because he is creating jobs. And that's where I wanted to take this. He is a job creator in essence for the Black community. And that's why they revere him. Not so much, I feel, because of the quality of his art form, but his place in the community as a job creator for a lot of aspiring Black actors, producers, etc.
I can't disagree with anything that you just said at all. I can't disagree with anything that you just said, Ray, but let me postulate another question. More than likely, if he didn't, if his subject matter, okay, let me ask you a question. If his subject matter wasn't that of, let's say, in the beginning, having sort of, I don't want to say making fun, but sort of disparaging, in my opinion, I don't know, you may feel differently, the African American culture. Do you think he would have had the same appeal or growth potential that he had?
No, and I'm gonna tell you why. And you might not use my language, but people like stupid entertainment. People like goofy entertainment. People like buffoonery. It sells. I mean, that's why Donald Trump is so popular. True. And it sickens me to my stomach because people like, I can't use the word that I really, but I'm going to say buffoonery, But I have a more choice word. But people seem to like that. Even in our government, they'd rather, a cult of personality idiot like Donald Trump to take the reins because he's entertaining. People want to be entertained by people who are not in the business of entertaining, and that's what I hate about being an American. Growing up in this country, I've learned through the rise of Donald Trump's power that we truly worship celebrity. We truly worship money. I heard on a documentary somewhere that "In God We Trust" wasn't added to our money until around World War II, because it was like Americanism became, nationalism of America became synonymous with God at some point. And alliance to America was also allegiance to God. It's so messed up how, we have that, but yet the Constitution says separation of church and state.
I think somebody.
I'm sorry.
Somebody put. Wait. Somebody put that in our chat, because I read that same thing that you're talking about. When in God we trust. I think it may have been British MCP who put something of that nature in our chat, and I went and I hit ahead and read it. But I need to go to the Ryan Grimm story that I interviewed Ryan Grimm. But before that, I want to say one thing. Look, I respect Tyler Perry as a capitalist, just like I respect Taylor Swift as a capitalist. For the things that I preach, for what I preach about building not on the backs of others, right? And I think more so than Taylor Swift, if you look at how I think, again, this is my opinion. I just felt that I don't. Well, you know what I feel about that. I just have this thing about you using the pain of others to build on. But anyway, we can finish that conversation on another day when I have more time. But anything else, Ray, before I run to the other video?
Yeah, a quick question.
Yes.
How would you feel if somebody like a Tyler Perry, with all his wealth and riches that, we can, respectfully agree that was probably not all merited. What if he was to use that to wield more progressive political power?
Now yes, sir. Let's answer that question straight up. I spoke about that 2 days ago on KPFT. If Beyonce, if Jay-Z, if Taylor Swift, if Tyler Perry were to go ahead and say, I made all these millions, now I want to go ahead and get the progressive movement going so that all the people in America can partake of the spoils of America. I think that would be atonement, in my humble opinion. But let's talk about that another day. So yes, I am not at all against those guys coming out and doing that, sir. Not at all.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. But we will talk again, brother, and I'll be listening. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one, my friend. All right, folks, I'm going to go now with the interview that I did. Yesterday, I played the piece where Ryan Grimm really made mincemeat out of Ted Cruz. I caught up with him in LA yesterday, and here's the interview that we did. I want to play that for you guys right this minute. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. Today, we are honored to have Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm is an American author and journalist. Grimm was Washington, D.C. bureau chief for Huffington Post and is now the Washington, D.C. bureau chief of The Intercept. He's also a political commentator for Breaking Points and appears frequently on The Majority Report with Sam Seder. Ryan's newest book is The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. Good afternoon, El Senor Ryan Grimm. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. It's lovely to see you.
Look, it's great seeing you, but let me just start it this way. Before we get into your book, I want to say that I've been yearning to see people who get onto our national press, the mainstream media on, let's say, the MSNBC, ABC, CBS, to go out there and really give the position without fear. And today, that's what I saw from you when you confronted Ted Cruz. I can't tell you how ecstatic I was when I saw that clip, because rarely do you find folks, especially on the issue of Israel and other issues of consequence, do they get challenged. First of all, you were very prepared, weren't you?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I host a podcast called Deconstructed that was started by Mehdi Hassan, and so he's a friend, former colleague. He wrote a book maybe a year ago about his interviewing style. He's just an absolute master at interviewing, and one of the depressing takeaways from it was you have to do a lot of work to prepare. I thought there would be a couple tricks. If I could just learn these tricks, then I've got them. But no, turns out that his real key is research, preparation, anticipating responses, and being ready with facts that you can push back on, so that you don't allow just endless evasion and talking points.
And that was obvious, because I tell you what, when it's amazing, because as I watched you, as he started to bring the story about the river to the sea, as he said that, I sat down watching the interview and I said, I hope Ryan is going to note that is a part of the Likud platform. And bingo, you interrupted him right there. You didn't give him a chance to bloviate. And immediately you took command of the interview then.
And I think he didn't know that. Was that your impression?
Know. He didn't know.
Which is so wild. He's a smart guy. He went to good schools. He reads the paper. He's got aides who brief him. Like, how do you not know that?
When you live in a bubble, Ryan, when you live in a bubble, everything that you get is whatever the Heritage Foundation feeds to you, whatever the Cato Institute feeds to you. You know nothing else. Guys like you go out there and you kind of read everything. I remember the last book that you wrote. We did an interview in, I think, 2019, and then it was obvious that the kind of work that progressives like yourself, good journalists, do is to make sure that they're well informed on the issues that they cover. And that showed right there. But I tell you something even more profound. The comeback after you asked them, you turned this question right on. Tell us about that. You turned the question on him.
Well, right. So he says, from the river to the sea, and he says Hamas. I said, well, why is one genocidal if it's said by one side but not on the other? And he says, well, because Hamas, is genocidal. I said, well, that's just restating the point. What's your, how do you explain the discrepancy? And then you saw him pause and stop and, okay, how do I explain this apparent contradiction? And what he did is he went into how, the morning before he had seen the video that the IDF has been showing to people, 47-minute video of absolutely horrifying atrocities. And after he told that, I said, we have all condemned that. Absolutely horrifying stuff. But let's get on the same moral plane here. And then, as you saw, you read him a list of public statements made by Israeli government officials, some of which have been condemned by elements of the Israeli government themselves, floating the nuking of Gaza, for instance. And I said, will you join us in condemning these statements? And he could say, those are bad apples. Those are not representative. Those are taken out of context. And instead he said, I condemn nothing. And at that point you're like, okay, well, I guess we've arrived at the end. This is where we all get off.
Even coming from Ted Cruz, that was shocking to me. I mean, when he said, I condemn nothing, that took the morality out of it, right? Because that says there's nothing that you can do.
There is nothing
that I will condemn. And also what it does is it takes away the ability for him to see the humanity on the other side, which I think it's a problem that we have here. I'm from Central America, Panama. And I remember when Bush #1 came in and bombed Chorrillo, the part of Panama where Noriega was. I remember being over here, my father running around in his bedroom with missiles flying. And the only thing I heard over here is collateral damage. There was nothing about what was at the other end of those bombs. And that is why what's occurring right now. I feel the pain that the Israelis feel, but I also feel the pain that the Palestinians are feeling with all their destruction, infrastructure, and cracked skulls,
Yeah. And there's it's controversial in the U.S. To say that Palestinian lives are the same as American lives, or the same as Puerto Rican lives, or the same as any other lives. I think you get that Pramila Jayapal was getting, dunked on for using the word balance, that we need to be balanced in how we talk about this. Like that's genuinely controversial to suggest.
It is sad. Well, now that you brought up Pramila Jayapal and others, I think it's a good point for us to kind of segue into your book. You wrote another book. Tell us a little bit about that book and what got you. I mean, when did you start that book? I imagine you because it seems like you have quite a bit of history in the book.
Yeah, it's kind of a sequel to the last one that we talked about. That one ran from basically the 1980s up until 2018, and it told a very satisfying story of underdogs pushing back against the corporate establishment wing of the party, and having some real breakthrough success. First with the Bernie Sanders campaign, and then with the Squad getting elected to Congress. And the book ends with AOC, Justice Democrats, and Sunrise occupying Nancy Pelosi's office. So it's like finishes, but also it's unfinished. Like what happens next? Like where does this go from here? So this book kind of picks up with the first Bernie Sanders campaign, because that's really where the energy that grew into the Squad originated, but also where the energy to kind of cynically undermine that movement came from. Hillary Clinton famously saying, and I go back over this in the book, in that campaign, saying, Bernie is a one-issue candidate. All he cares about is the economy. And she says, well, breaking up the big banks won't end racism. As
I
if
remember that.
Yeah, as if that, and it kind of stops you in your track, because on the one hand, you're like, well, no policy proposal is going to end racism,
right?
Period, like ever. But the banks have been a part of embedding systemic racism into our into our fabric of our society. Like
in fact, to some people would actually say that it's a necessary factor. I mean, that's another story.
Not sufficient. It's not sufficient, but it would help.
Yes, exactly. Continue, please.
And then so the book then follows the Squad as they arrive in Congress with people power and with idealism into an institution that is built and designed to like crush those things. And it's like how do those two currents crashing into each other affect each other?
I tell you something that I've been thinking, because some on the progressive end for some time now that that AOC is pretty seasoned, I've given her some problems, and what I've been trying to say is she's a very matured Squad member now, who knows when to stop and when to move. And in my opinion, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I've watched both her and the others actually grow into learning how to keep their progressive values and at the same time understand that they're working with a bigger body.
Yes. And what I would say is that the book isn't going to answer any questions that people have about, like, it's not going to provide the answer of, yes, they're sellouts. No, they're not sellouts. Or, this was right, this was wrong. What it does is it tells the story in a way that I think people who are diehard supporters of them will find it interesting and fair. And I think people who are, dead end detractors of them, if they actually bother to read it, would also find it fair and would come away from it with a better understanding of what happened, why it happened, why people made the decisions they did, and then can still conclude, if they want, at the end, that was, this was the wrong decision at this time. They should have done this. But it's good to know everything that happened and everything that was going into it.
And not only that, I like the way that you said that they would look. It turns out that they're nothing more than people trying to make the best choice that they thought of at that time. Maybe sometimes a bit wrong, maybe sometimes a bit right. And I think that as an author describing who they are, I don't think there's a better way to do that. Now, where do you think we go from here? Right now, we have an institution, or I should say an organization in AIPAC, attempting to pretty much destroy what's left. Well, not what's left. The squad have actually been building to pretty much destroy the building of the expansion of the squad, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a moment where the question is, like, can the band get back together? Like, can everybody rally for this existential threat? Like, AIPAC has been very clear that let's say you count 8 members of the squad, at least like 5 of them are going to have serious challenges in which many of them are maybe even going in as underdogs. They can absolutely win. They can even expand the size of the squad. And whether they shrink or grow this time, I think really shapes, maybe for an entire generation, like what progressives believe is possible when it comes to electoral politics and politics inside the House. Because if AIPAC succeeds in decimating the squad, which is only 8 members, but represents the hopes of like tens of millions of people,
young people,
that's a signal to them that either there's no place for you in this party, or you're going to have to work an awful lot harder for it against an awful lot of money.
You know, it's interesting that you said that, because if you listen to my show today, I actually mentioned why it is so important for them to win this time around and beat big money. $100 million is what we're talking about. As on Howard Short's Justice show earlier today in New York. And that's the same thing we spoke about, that the squad has that the progressives have to coalesce around these guys right now to overcome that amount. Now, who would you consider underdogs right now in the group?
It's, I think that Cori Bush is in a tough race. She's freshman member of Congress.
Yes.
She's gonna, she's not from a rich background. She's gonna have to rely on grassroots supporters, and her opponent, this guy Wesley Bell, is somewhat ally of hers in the past. There's nobody's really an ally when you're coming up together in city politics. But he's a progressive, had the backing of the Soros kind of, criminal justice reform element to become a prosecutor there. He was going to run for Senate, but clearly it was made. He saw that there was going to be a lot of support if he would challenge Cori Bush. So yeah, he's polished. And if you're a progressive, there's a lot of progressives who be like, yeah, he's good. He says all the right things. But he's going to have to explain why he's running against her, and he's going to have to explain that it's about Israel-Palestine. He's already said that he felt like he's already been very critical of her for calling for a ceasefire, and so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. So I think she's vulnerable. I think Summer Lee only won by a couple points, and they spent maybe $3 million against her. Maybe this time they'll drop 10. Because they've dropped 7 in a race before against Don Edwards. They put 7. I think Ilhan Omar, she took her race for granted last time and only won by like 4 points.
I don't think she will now.
She absolutely will not get caught sleeping again this time.
Yeah.
And there are currently, it looks like, at least 2 opponents, which makes it tougher to knock her off. But if she only won with 52% of the vote last time, she has to run like she's behind. Jamal Bowman, just today picked up a popular
Latimer.
George Latimer was a county commissioner, like a county executive or something like that in the north of New York City. And he just returned from a trip to Israel to announce his run.
No, I think that's a chain, sort of a chain though, because I think if an ad is done with the right kind of twist in it, it would seem like, are you running for your district or are you running for a foreign government? I think I think there's a little something there that they could pull off, but I don't know.
Some of that'll depend on what the New York is still going to redraw the lines.
Yeah.
And so they'll, if you're a betting person, like, are they going to help Jamal or are they going to screw Jamal?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in Illinois, when they redrew the lines, and I read about this in the book, Marie Newman was one of the most passionate supporters of Palestinian rights in Congress. She represented the largest concentration of Palestinian Americans, maybe in the country, in Illinois. When they redrew the lines, because Palestinian Americans or Arab Americans are not considered to be a kind of ethnic minority group,
right?
Like they're considered white.
They split them right through. Yeah,
they split them in 5 different districts.
Wow. Oh yeah.
Passed them to the wind.
Yeah.
Because she had been such an outspoken critic of AIPAC and the Netanyahu government while she was in Congress. They're like, we cannot allow this to happen again. And they took her out. Took Andy Levin out, who was a synagogue president, and a liberal Zionist, who, proud Zionist, but heavily critical of the Israeli government, and would often defend Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar when they were getting hit by AIPAC. And AIPAC said out loud, like, we have to take Andy Levin out because he creates space for Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and they redistricted him and put him in a contest with another Democrat who then they spent millions backing and knocked him out. So Jamal will probably face a tough redistricting challenge as well. But on the other hand, it's New York. And yes, people say that, well, there's a lot of Jewish voters in his district, but not all Jewish voters are supportive of what the Israeli government is doing. And he won a lot of Jewish precincts in 2020 when he first ran. And what the war and its aftermath look like 6 months from now may make Latimer's position look maniacal.
I so agree. Yeah, I so agree. Well, look, Ryan, I took a lot of your time already. I know you've been all over California doing your thing. Normally, I ask this question. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
I don't know. I think you actually really covered it. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I want you guys to go out there and get the book. His first book, bestseller. Let's go get this one, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. Ryan Grimm, author and journalist and bureau chief. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Let's see. Ryan Grimm got schooled by Ted Cruz. Mike Cisak was watching the interview in one of his projection mirrors. Let's see what else we got here. Breach says that AIPAC is a bipartisan pro-Israel political action committee. It is the largest pro-Israel PAC in America and contributed more resources directly to candidates than any other PAC. 98% of AIPAC-backed candidates won their general election races in 2022, and that's what put the fear into politicians' head. And that's why we cannot allow any single one of the squad to fall to AIPAC. We cannot allow that to occur. Let's see, Paul Fleming, drop me your number at info@politicsdoneright.com. info@politicsdoneright.com. I'll give you a call. Let's see what else we got here. Vrij MCP says, you think Israel would let us use helicopter? Oh, that's a conversation. Remember, Vrij, don't hold on to conversations when they're going nowhere, Vrij. You taught me that. Come on now. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Anyway, folks, please remember to support the program. And how can you do that? You can support the program by going to politicsdoneright.com/support. Once again, politicsdoneright.com/support. I am putting that into the chat right now. politicsdoneright.com/support. You can also go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter. I ask you so kindly to support our newsletter by becoming a paid subscriber, which gives you access to every single one of the books that I have written already, or the books that I am writing. I'm currently writing 3 books. I'll continue to do them. Right now, I've been so busy, I haven't been able to finish those up. But anyway, folks, please do remember to subscribe, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I'm putting it once more in the chat, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.